let's just go ahead and get started. I made everything in big type so I don't have to put on my readers. Um, why did I want to do this class today? Well, because the way in which we communicate is how all of our relationships are, whether it's business or whether it's personal. And you'll discover that as we go through a lot of this, there's a lot of crossover there. But in that too, there's a number of things that we can borrow from one and borrow from another. So this one's geared specifically towards real estate. Now, why would I say, language might be different in real estate? Well, it's how we actually use it. For instance, the example I put on there is the easy one. Doctors always say BP for blood pressure. And in our industry, we tend to do the same thing sometimes, where we will go ahead and we'll use certain terminology or certain ways of saying things, and people don't understand exactly what we're talking about. So we want to be a little bit more clear in how we do so. For instance, if you were to say the word comps in our industry, everybody knows what that means. Well, you can then say comparables. Actually, I even prefer going a step further and saying data, because it's even easier for people to understand the term data when you're talking about comparing different homes and all the different factors involved, rather than comps or comparables. But people who are in our industry, they may know what comps is, and then you would talk to them on that level too. Just like with a doctor may talk to a nurse or another doctor and say BP, and everybody knows what they're talking about. Also, how you communicate with someone guides the conversation and the interaction. A lot of times, in our everyday lives, we go ahead and we have no problem communicating with someone because it's just a simple conversation. But a lot of times in real estate, we want to make sure that conversation is purposeful. It has a direction, it has a course, and you want to go ahead and follow that course. So you want to make sure that how you say things, what is being said, so the content, the purpose, the direction, and the results of it may be a little bit different than an everyday conversation. For instance, I call my mom at least every other day during the week, and a lot of times it's a check-in and what's going on and so on. But my purpose for her isn't to set the appointment, because I'm talking to my mom, and that's not what it's about. But the purpose for a real estate conversation may be to set the appointment, or maybe to get them to commit to something, or something of that nature. So that's the reason why you want to make sure that your conversation and how you phrase things is a little bit more in that direction. You want to be intentional in your conversation. You want to be active, not passive. So when you're intentional in your conversation, you just don't let the conversation happen as it happens. So again, for instance, I can have a conversation with somebody I know, such as my mom or a friend of mine. And we're like, oh, by the way, did you get that email? Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, and that reminds me, by the way, your sister is going to go ahead and she's going to be at your cousin's next week. Are you going to be able to make it? Yeah, I think I can make it there, aren't they? And you just start, one thing leads to another, which is fine, because it's a passive conversation and you're allowing that to take place. But in an active conversation, you're directing it. You're making sure how it goes. You kind of bring it back in. Think of it, as many of you know, I have 2 cattle dogs, and they tend to be herding dogs. That's what they're called. So they love to direct what's taking place. Their 2 best friends down the street are St. Bernards. And so when the St. Bernards come over, they tell the St. Bernards what to do. Now, they let the St. Bernards do whatever they want to do. But if the St. Bernards are going where they shouldn't be going, or they've taken the toy and won't give it back, my dogs let them know that that's not what they're going to do. And they become active in the play and let them know where they need to go and what they need to do. So it's the same thing with us. Not comparing your clients to dogs. You never heard that from me, okay? The other thing is repeat, 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 repeat. There's a few reasons why we repeat. First, repetition creates memory. When you say things over and over again, it creates a memory. So when you're having a conversation with someone, that can create a memory there. It also can create a standard and so forth. For instance, in fact, I shared this in gratitude this morning, that I had a buyer that wanted to buy this triplex. And I had stated to them at the beginning, okay, just to let you know, in this scenario, you're probably not looking at getting positive cash flow at the beginning of the transaction or at the beginning of the purchase. It's going to take a while before it gets there, probably 2 to 3 years. Great. I said that once again. And they talked to the lender. The lender said it again. Then I sent them statistics and all the information about the property, which had it on there again. So initially, when I had that conversation, oh, no problem. Then, oh, no problem. Then at 2 more times, I got a phone call from them. Rob, we decided not to go with this property because it didn't start with a positive cash flow. Okay, so it took 4 times from 3 different sources, twice from me, 1 from a piece of paper, an electronic piece of paper, and 1 from the lender. Finally sunk in. And then at that point, they remember. So now also it's going to be, if I start another transaction with them again, where we look at another place of purchasing, that's going to be in their mind because now it's been said to them a number of times from a number of places. Also, when you're having a conversation, when I say repeat, repeat, restating something helps a number of things. 1, it helps for you to own what's being said, because as you're stating it, not just listening it and being passive, but now you're being active and you're actually, you're recommunicating what you're saying, perhaps putting it in your own words, which also helps you to remember. It also affirms the other person is being heard. This is one thing, by the way, in personal relationships too, and in business relationships, people don't feel like they're being heard a lot in our world. That's always been a human need, but now more than ever, because everything is being blasted to them all at once. Hence why we have social media, and so many people are just stating their opinions without filters sometimes when there need to be filters. And it ends up because it's the only place where they feel like they can communicate because they're not being heard anywhere else. So when we say something back, it affirms to the other person, hey, I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you too. So let's dive in a little bit. And if I'm talking too fast, please let me know, but I've had a lot of caffeine today. So I kind of touched on this before. Real estate can be full of terms. We slowly get to know more and more terms as we get into the industry, such as cap rate, EMD, earnest money deposit. Oh, see, I used one right there. I said EMD, but earnest money deposit, comps, and so on. So when terminology is being used, you can't avoid it in our industry. So how do you leverage that? You want to go ahead and you want to be the resource to explain that. So let me give you an example. I have a listing in Whittier right now. And when I talked to my seller the other day, I let her know that right now we have 4 offers. And I started breaking down what that meant. So I started breaking down, this is what the offers are. This one's cash, this one's this one's that. One has got an appraisal. Okay, this is what this means by an appraisal. I started explaining everything to her. I started becoming the resource to her to guide her through that. Now, when we also first started talking about listing her home about 2 months ago, we started talking about some of the things that would take place in that. So I said, well, I'll need to send over a listing agreement or we can go over it together. And this is what a listing agreement is. So I'm not making assumptions, especially for somebody who hasn't done a real estate transaction in over 20 years. I'm not going to make any assumptions. In fact, if anything, it's better if I over explain things. When we assume, there's an old saying, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So you don't want to do that. You want to go ahead and you want to explain things. Assuming can be one of those things that that can be a problem without context too. Another example, this morning, I went to pull into the parking lot and one of our top agents in our office, Pete Bonacore, he taps on my window and I roll it down and he said, and he lets me know I can't park back there. And just by letting you know that, then you don't know the context of that. Well, what do you mean? Is one of our top agents telling me I can't park back there? Why? Because he sells more than me? Well, he has seniority over me. You know, I could completely go down that and make that assumption without proper context. The reason why he told me that was the parking lot is full. So literally, there is no place for me to park. So you want to go ahead and not make assumptions, not go ahead and go down that route. You want to go ahead and just make sure everything is clear and over explain things too. Technology, this is a huge pet peeve. Those of you in your personal life, especially in relationships, you'll discover this can also become a big thing. Electronic communication is both a blessing and a curse. Why? Well, because there's no inflection behind it. There's nothing about that. So if, for instance, just in personal relationships, if you were to say, like, oh, can you go ahead and pick this up for me at the store? It would be nice. Great, that sounds fine. But what if I were to say, can you pick this up for me at the store? It would be nice. That has a completely different context and meaning there. There's something completely different behind that. And electronic communication strips that out. So the part that's the blessing is, as you know, a lot of times, something that doesn't take a long conversation can easily be handled in a text. You can easily just let somebody know, yes, I can be there. No, I can't be there. Yes, we can do that. Nope, and whatever. But the other part that's a curse is there is no context behind it. So I am currently, in fact, in an escrow, and we're getting ready to close. So most of those communications now are over. But during the process, they love texting. And so there was a number of times I texted them and I would send information, and the one spouse would sometimes instantly reply and get upset over something. And then before I would even have a chance to explain, the other spouse would then jump in on the conversation through text and say, Rob, we understand what you mean. Thank you. The first one was making an assumption, and they weren't looking at what the context might be at the time. And even though I tried to make sure everything was communicated clearly, they have some filter they're looking through that I'm not aware of. And so that's how they're interpreting everything. And it was the other one that actually realized, no, just take it at face value. All the information is there. That's what is being meant. Whereas if I were to call them on the phone and have the same conversation on the phone, none of that would have taken place. So with technology, you run into that. Now I'm saying texting, but it also can be email. It can be any of the ways that we electronically communicate with somebody else. Be aware to that sort of thing. Another part of that is what you are willing to say in front of someone and what people are willing to say through electronic communication can be two different things. And understand that sometimes people don't understand there's a filter there or a barrier there, and things may be said electronically. One thing is that if you get something and you want to immediately react to it, step back. Think about it for a moment and step back. Is this really what you want to say? Are you responding to something instead of being active and really thinking through what your response should be at that moment? Would it be something too that maybe it's best to call on the phone and actually have that personal conversation to clear things up? So, and I know I'm talking about, a lot of fumbles in that, but this is what can happen sometimes in electronic communication. Those of us who've been in a number of transactions, we can be well aware that this is actually what can take place. I also want to say too, when it comes to technology, people will go ahead and rely on it a little bit too much. And it doesn't hurt just to give a phone call and reach out on the phone. I've said that many times over and over. If you're wanting to do something with a client or with another agent, give them a call and reach out and get the story. Because also what you're going to get with a conversation on the phone or face-to-face can be much different than what you get electronically. You also may get more information. For instance, I actually got an offer late last night, $500,000 below our asking price for a home that we have listed. So had they called me or had any communication with me, they would have known that we actually have offers that are 500,000 above that. So kind of fills in the gaps there. Another one is etiquette, and this is a pet peeve of mine. First, pay attention to grammar and sentence structure. You're a professional, so you want your communication to be professional. Now, obviously, if you have a relationship with somebody, like let's say Chris and I were to text each other, I am not going to go ahead and look at everything that he texts and make sure that the grammar is correct and he capitalized correctly. Oh, you should have used a comma there. That I'm not going to do. But if I get something communicated from somebody that I have never interacted with before, what do you think I'm going to get a chance to judge them on? Those are some of the things that you look at and you want to pay attention to. And the thing is with technology, our electronic communication has become very lax, where people don't always pay attention to that. A lot of times they rely too much on the spell checks. So what can be a problem there? Well, you could say, oh, I was sending you this from my client. But instead it says, I was sending you this form, my client. Spelled correctly, but it's not the right word. So make sure you read through what you're sending professionally to somebody else. You want it to be a reflection of you. You want to make sure that it is structured in a way that is easy to understand and it comes off professionally. Another one, and this tends to be a little bit of a generation gap, but I have people in my generation, hence we watched the Brady Bunch when it first was aired, that still are plagued by this. And that's machine gun texting. What is machine gun texting? It literally is, hey, what are you doing? Send. I was wondering if you were in the area. Send. Would you be free? Send. Question mark. Send. Question mark. Send. Question mark. Send. Okay, that's annoying. Just annoying. It's almost like if you were to relate it, when you see a little kid going to a parent and going, mom, 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 mom. That is how it comes off when you get machine gun texting, you know, and that's even on silent. If it's not on silent, your phone's going ding, 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 ding. Oh, then it's double annoying. So don't machine gun text. Use full sentences. Try and make sure that you're being polite to the other person and take that all in consideration. Also, thank you. Don't forget to send thank yous all the time. We're in an industry where that means a lot. I can give you an example of that. Earlier this year, I had a condo that was for sale. We had 7 offers that came through on the condo. Some of the offers were almost exactly alike. There was very little difference between the offers. So I started paying attention to how well the agent communicated with me. Did they follow up with me? How did they follow up? What was their etiquette? Were they polite? What did they say? And I know that may seem like, well, Rob, you're getting nitpicky there, but literally I had, out of those offers, I had a bunch of them that were almost duplicate. So if I were to evaluate them, how did they interact with me? And did they take the time to even say thank you? That does make a big difference and it does set the tone and people pay attention to that. Now, also under technology is automation. And again, this is another blessing and a curse. If it's generic, it can be a curse. Well, what do I mean by that? Let's say you know somebody's birthday's coming up. Like for instance, a very good friend of mine, Jill, it's her birthday today. So I'm going to actually send a personalized video text to her a little bit later. But if I just sent out a generic text that came from, let's say, an automated system, she's going to know that. I mean, we have people that are very intelligent, including you, and you can sniff that out in a heartbeat. You can tell if that's like generic or not. And when I get something generic, I know it's generic. And what you told me is that, oh, when it comes to my birthday, I'm not even worth the time for you to send a personal text to me. It's automated. And that actually does a disservice and communicates something I really don't want communicated. That's where the automation can be the curse. Another part that can be the curse is your information or the structure of the automation is not correct. In the marketing class, I have a plethora of examples of newsletters that I've gotten in email format that have come across dear client's first name, client's last name. We were really wondering if you, comma, client's first name, client's last name, comma, and it went on like that. Okay, that does not come off well. You know, there's a number of things that tells me, okay, if you're relying on your systems are messed up. If you're relying on your information's messed up. Also, you don't even proof the stuff you're sending out. So if I want to do business with you, how do I know that you're not going to proof that stuff that's not getting sent out? So that's where it can be the curse there. And so even your newsletters, if you're going to put that kind of information in there, send a test to yourself first. Make sure it comes across correctly. Then maybe automate it. However, if you personalize it, it can be a blessing. So I also have gotten emails that have said, you know, dear Rob, thank you so much from your donation from the Marin household, blah, 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 blah. I've gotten a lot of those because I tend to be involved in a lot of charity work. And that stuff I really appreciate. That stuff. I'm like, okay, even though I know it's probably a template, I still will read it through because I understand where it's coming from. So you want to make sure that when you're using technology, the automation part is something you're leveraging, but you just don't set it and forget it without making sure it's working properly, because it can actually do you a huge disservice. And as I don't know about some of you out there, but the more that I've seen in this industry, I've seen a lot of people relying on that. They're not actually being thorough on even cleaning up their database before they put their information in there. And sometimes the whole system can be set up very well, but if their database information is messed up, you still get the information messed up. Or if their database is great, but the system isn't quite tuned in, you still get the information messed up. So there's a number of factors in the automation that you don't want to make it just a set it and forget it without making sure that what you're setting is actually set up correctly. Another part of communication is you want to put in the extra effort. This is a huge pet peeve of mine too. I do a lot of written cards and letters and that kind of thing to people. It doesn't mean that you're spending a ton of money. I don't want it to seem like that. But you want to personalize it. There was a number of years ago, and there's companies are still out there, by the way, that you can upload your database and they say, oh, we will send out personalized cards from you. And the people cannot tell the difference between your handwriting and our automated computer handwriting. Well, our brains are made to pick up repetition. It just can't. So I've looked at some of those because I actually ordered an example. I was really curious about it. And as soon as I looked at it, I went, yep, that's automated. Because I can tell, like, there's automatic patterns in there. And even though they try to vary things up, I can tell they're automatic patterns. So I was like, this is not something I want coming out from my business. Because if I'm going to send a card, again, I want to make sure that they read the card and they know that I took the time to write it, not that, oh, you're not even worth my time. Therefore, I'm going to have a computer do this instead and make it look like I did and fool you, because that also is a little bit insulting to people too. And even when I do that, I don't use labels on my card except for my return address label. I will handwrite the address as well, because if I put something on there and everything is labeled, unless it's a Thanksgiving card or a Christmas card or a Hanukkah card or something like that, that's when everybody kind of expects for labels. If you label things that are supposed to be birthday cards and something, a lot of times people think it may be just junk mail, or you didn't even take the time to write it out. People notice that. So when you handwrite something, you want to be able to communicate that, no, I take the time, I value you as a person. And by the way, use a number of things. I always bring up birthdays and anniversaries, and people having kids and people getting new animals or that kind of thing, or sympathy cards. But I send thank you cards all the time. The mayor in my city, he and I have become good friends, and a lot of it's because I've sent him thank you cards for a lot of times I notice things he's done for our city. And I just take note of it. I send him a thank you card and I let him know how much I appreciate it. And then I end up getting a response from him. And it actually has created a relationship that he's the mayor of our city, but whenever I see him at an event, he makes an effort to come over and say hi to me now. And that's pretty much because of all the cards I've written. The extra effort is also in the time taken. One of our most valuable things in our life is time. And so when you give time away, people notice that. Now, especially if you're trying to lead generate, that's a great way to lead generate, because you're creating that relationship and you're deepening that relationship. Now, the time taken can be something short and sweet. You can do what's called a pop-by, and there's some examples of that. But for instance, I have for people in coaching, I have like a little handout that says, oh my gourd, and it has all these little mini pumpkins and all of those little gourds on the front. I can't believe it's this season. And you cut that out and you go to Trader Joe's and you can buy those little gourds for like 99 cents each. You go to somebody's house and you give it to them. And it's just kind of one of those fun things that lets you create a conversation. You're there maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Hey, I just wanted to stop by real quick. I have somewhere to go, because you might actually want to do another pop by. And you just do that. You take 2 to 3 hours doing that. You end up really creating a lot of great conversations with people. It takes some time out of your day and people appreciate that. But it also makes you stand out from the crowd too. That kind of stuff people do appreciate. Or if you actually treat them to coffee or lunch or dinner or drinks or something like that, people appreciate that as well. For instance, this last Saturday, I was showing the seller of the listing I have in Whittier right now, another home I have coming up in Whittier. And afterwards, everybody said, well, you know what? We're going to go to El Cholo at 4 p.m. And I actually had to hand the keys off, go to a condo for somebody that I helped him purchase that condo at 4 p.m. I said, let me do that first, but then I'll come over and join you guys. So that ended up that I had to drive there, and then I had to drive another 7 minutes. I met him at the restaurant. We had a great time, and I picked up the tab, no big deal. But it ended up that spending that time with them deepened all of our relationships. We had a great time. It just really showed that it was that extra effort. By the way, my seller's daughter ended up saying to me, hey, you're not getting out of this industry anytime soon, are you? And I said, no. And she goes, good, because I know that my fiance and I, when we're ready to buy it, we got to give you a call. So that was something right then and there in the back of my mind went, see, the extra effort really pays off. And by the way, Joey's the one who gave me that tip years ago. Instead of spending a ton of money on a lot of the generic marketing that we do, the personalized marketing, that extra effort you put in can really be more impactful. Remember, when you communicate, it's about them. It's not about you. And there's a number of things involved in that. First of all, let the conversation be about them. So remember, in this industry, a lot of times we have a tendency of wanting to talk. People want to be heard. And when you're talking, you don't even know what their needs are. So that's one of those things that you want to do, is you want to go ahead and you want to ask questions. We talk about this all the time in coaching, that you want to ask open-ended questions. So you want to not ask the yes or no. Oh, by the way, how are you doing today? Good. Kind of ends like that. Oh, so have you been looking for a house for a while? Yes. Oh, do you live in the area? Yes. Okay, well, that's not going anywhere. So instead, ask the open-ended questions. What, who, when, where, why, how, all of those questions. So how has your day been going? Tell me one thing today that really stood out to you. Oh, that's a little bit different. If you're talking to, let's say, a buyer and you know they've been shopping for a while, or you don't know how long they've been shopping for, you can even ask, well, what neighborhoods have you been looking at recently? Have you liked some of the results that you've seen? Those kind of questions revolve around them. It's not about you. Notice that the question is short, the answer is going to be long. So who does most of the communication? The client does. Also, we talk about the DISC personality a lot of the time, because you can have people that's a high D, a high I, a high S, and a high C. And they can also be a combination. Usually you have a dominant and then you have a secondary, but then that's how you adjust the communication to their personality. So for instance, the very first deal I ever did, my client was a high D. So when we did open house, I called her up. I said, by the way, we had 23 people that came through today. Open house was at the times that I told you. We did it from 12 to 4 p.m. We had 11 people that really liked the house. 3 of them said that they were going to come back tomorrow. We're doing open house tomorrow at the same time. Okay, Rob, thanks. Click, bye, we're done. That's all she wanted. That's all she wanted. The second sale I did, he was somebody completely the opposite, and everything about him was feeling. So I called him up with the same phone call. He was selling a condo, and he said, oh, so how'd it go today? We had 23 people came through. 11 people really liked the place. 3 of them said that they'd be back tomorrow. Oh, well, the other people, why didn't they like the place? Was it too dark? Did they not like, the building? No, they blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. Well, now the people who said that they were going to come back, did they say why they were going to come back? What did they like? Is there something we can do to make them feel better? What do we need that place to look brighter? Is it too cluttered? Do I need to take even more stuff down? It was a lot of those sort of things. What did they like about it? Did they like the way that we had things set up? Did they like, and then every once in a while I even got, did they like the music you had playing? Did they like the candle you had burning? All of that. What did they like? What did they feel? All of that sort of thing. And so then that phone call was like a 7-10 minute phone call with him that communicated the basic things, but all the other information they wanted. If I had swapped my answers with both of those people, my high D person would be like, why are you wasting my time? And my other person would be, why aren't you giving me the information that I want to hear? Why are you cutting me off? So it's about them. It's not about you. And you communicate how they prefer to communicate. In that too, by the way, the aforementioned sellers that I mentioned, that one was sometimes kind of jumped a little bit and read into things, and the other one did not. They really preferred to communicate all via text. That was the main reason of how they wanted to communicate. So because of that, I communicated them mainly through text. Every once in a while they ask, Rob, can we call you tonight around 6 p.m.? Sure, because then that's when they wanted a phone call. So I communicated in the style that they preferred too. Another part of when you communicate is what is your what is your intentions behind it, and intentional. So are you communicating where it's intentional or it's conditional? So conditional means like it's an if. So a lot of times it's so easy in our language to say, oh, if you want to meet tomorrow, if you want to connect, if you decide to list with me, if we sell your home. And that gives them in their mind the option of, well, maybe I won't do it. Maybe there's a reason why I won't work with this person. So you want to switch that to when we get together, when we sell your home, when we decide to sign a contract. You make it when, so everything sounds like we're moving forward and this is what we're wanting to do. And you're setting the tone of that conversation. So you know that, hey, you're intentional. It's not going to be an if. There's no way you're going to get out of this. Now, of course, if somebody is determined to say no, they're going to say no, but that's not even in your mind. So let's not even talk about that. We're going to go with when, because this is the right way to move and we're going to move forward with that. So that's part of that communication that happens too. Again, let me talk about my mom. Sometimes when I call her up, I'll say, Mom, if I get a chance on Saturday, I'll go ahead and come over. Fine. It's my mom, so I don't need to control the conversation like that. But when you're having business conversations, you want to be in charge of the conversation, and using intentional language helps you to be in charge. And the last section we're going to cover is the 5 love languages of real estate. Now, the 5 love languages has been out for a while, and this is a huge summary of it. So we're not going to dive deep into that, because then you guys would be here until next Monday. And I'm sorry, but I have places to go and things to do, including see my mom on Saturday. So we're just going to go over the basic things here. But this kind of lets you know. First, words of affirmation. So, you want to, and this says here, telling your client that his or her home has just been sold. That is a great affirmation. Hey, guess what? It's just been sold. I actually even use this beyond that. I will tell my clients, oh, great job cleaning up your home. Now, they may have done a terrible job, but then I'll say, great job cleaning up your home. There's a few things that I've noticed, and then whatever we may need to do from there. Recently, I had a listing in Highland Park that's exactly what some of the things that took place, where they said, hey, Rob, we cleaned the home up. It should be ready for the staging and deep cleaning. Okay, I walked in. I was like, oh, yeah, there's some things that needs to be done. But that's not the first thing I led with. I affirmed what they had done. Hey, guys, the home looks great. By the way, I did notice that in the one baby area, there's a lot of still things around there. These are some things that need to be addressed. How did you want to handle that? And then we went from there. But I affirmed everything that they had done. Even in communication with them, I would let them know, like, hey, thank you for being responsive. I really appreciate it. It's made such a difference. I've also said thank you in it too. But I was affirming it in all those different ways. I let them know that, hey, I appreciate them. And those are those words of affirmation that really make a difference. We want to tell the story of what we're doing to our client, for our clients, but we also want to tell them their story of what they're doing to help themselves too. So that's one of those things that we want to be very aware of as well. Acts of service. So this is when you communicate, okay, you're helping the client sell their home. You want to let them know, like, hey, this is one way in which I care about you. I'm helping you sell your home. And you even talk to them about that. I want to be a resource to you. I want to help you sell your home. I want to help you find your home. I want to help you with the staging of your home. I want to help you when you need to find vendors, when we need to find inspections and inspectors and those sort of things. Those are the things that you want to communicate. This is how I'm helping you. Now, receiving gifts. This is, I think, kind of just a simple one. Gifting your client with a sold sign. Look, see how cute it is? In fact, I even have one. See, right there, sold. And then home sweet home. So you can give them this. You can even just take a selfie with this and send it to them. You can take a selfie with this in front of their new home. Here's a hint. Have it printed out at Walmart. It's going to cost you $3. Go across the street then to Marshall's, buy a frame for another $5. Put it in the frame and gift it to them. Okay. It shows the extra effort. Remember, I just talked about extra effort. That's one of the things that shows extra effort. It costs you $8.50 with tax. And now they got something cute and special from you. And it gives you a reason to come back and visit them. Okay. That's one of those things. Also, giving gifts can be something as simple as sending people a Starbucks card or a Pete's coffee card. I prefer Pete's over Starbucks, but sending them a card and saying, hey, I appreciate your time. And I do that all the time. I'll just take a $5 card. I actually have a stack of them at home and in the office here. And sometimes when I write a thank you card, it's like, hey, I just want to let you know that I appreciate your time, or I appreciated this. People do appreciate getting a gift. It's just one of those special things. If you are helping somebody sell a home or buy a home, you kind of do something a little bit above that too. So, for instance, the client that I just mentioned on Saturday, which we did the key handoff, and so it was the first time he's actually in his own condo with himself. I have these little like wine tote carriers that are the size of just a wine bottle, and inside it has everything you need for the wine. It has the cork, it has the aerator, it has the foil cutter, it has all of that stuff. And I put a really nice bottle of wine in there, and I gave it to him. And it was like, hey, I know you really like red wine, and so here's a gift. The clients that I'm closing on in Highland Park, I've helped them purchase their other home in Highland Park, and now I've sold their home in Highland Park. So once that closes, I'm actually giving them a big bonanza. So I'm showing up with a really nice Roomba because, hey, I know you guys have your kid and I know you have all these things going on. Here's something to make it easier to maintain the house. I'm also showing up with a basket because they're red wine drinkers. And in the basket, I have 3 bottles of wine that are ready to go. I have actually a wine aerator. I have a corkscrew, an electric corkscrew for them. And then also I took a photo of their family, printed out in an 8x10, and then I ordered a customized frame that says the name of their family on the top of the frame, and that's going to be in the back of the basket. And I'm going to present that to them. So a few things in that. One, they know I took all that extra time and effort. Yeah.
That's nice. I got to ask you to help me buy a home next after that.
Well, it communicates that, hey, I took all the extra time and effort to put that together. I listened to their needs. They're red wine drinkers. I asked them at one time, so I'm putting red wine in there. Somebody tells me they're white wine drinkers. I put them white wine. If they say, oh, we don't drink wine, I don't give them wine. Okay, you kind of customize it to what they want. But then it also gives me a reason to show up at their new home and just spend that little bit of time. Now, I only may be there 5 or 10 minutes. Hey guys, I just wanted to drop this off, and I really appreciate, all the business you've given me, and it personalizes all of that. People really appreciate that. Now, by the way, I'm going to let you know that giving a gift doesn't mean it has to cost a lot of money. And sometimes you can give something simple, but when it's personalized, they appreciate that. And there's some little things in the tips that I use for marketing on that. One of those is that I've mentioned this, that around Christmas time, I've done it with a whole bunch of my clients, so I'm not going to repeat it for those, but anybody I haven't done yet, I will print out, and again, I use the cheapy Walmart, and for this, I can use their 37 cents a print. I'll print out a little print of their dog, their kid, their grandkid, you know, any of those things. And then I have a little balsa wood frame that goes on the Christmas tree. That's one of those wooden frames, and it goes in there. And then on the back is my name and number stamped on the back. So every year they're going to hang that on the tree and actually put that in their Christmas card. And I've gotten such good rapport with that. By the way, those clients at Highland Park that I just mentioned, that I helped them buy their home, and now I'm helping them sell their home. I gave them one of those this last Christmas. 2 months later, they called me up and they said, we're shopping for homes. So that's one of those things that now they have personalized gifts from me, and it goes ahead and communicates even more to them. It's one of those love languages to them. The quality time, that kind of goes without saying. Some of the things I've already mentioned, you're gifting your time and how important it is, but people do appreciate that. A lot of people do appreciate the time. And again, just like the personalities that we talked about, some people, they may have a really busy schedule. So you saying, oh, can we get coffee? That may end up being like, not right now, because I got a lot of things going on. Or they may have a lot of things going on at the moment, but later on, they can make time. But giving them that time, they're going to appreciate. It's just finding out what's going to work best for them. Now, physical touch, I know this sounds like, you know, a big thing. I'm just saying sometimes hugging, shaking hands, you know, patting somebody on the back, all of that can communicate how you appreciate somebody, one of those love languages of real estate. And by the way, I do have a number of clients in that arena. That same couple I just mentioned to you, they're not huggers. I discovered that the first time we got together, and I've known the one seller for 20 some years. And the first time I hugged him, I was like, oh, he's not a hugger. I can tell. So I haven't hugged him since. Okay, no problem. But all these other ways have shown that, hey, I appreciate you. It's the love language of real estate. I have other clients. I had one recently that I sold his condo in West Hollywood. And when I got to his new place that he had bought in Palm Springs, we gave each other a big hug. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. When I left his place, gave each other a hug, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So with him, that's definitely a way in which that communicates. That's one of those other things. The question to ask is, what is your client's love language? When you're with them, when you're trying to show that you appreciate them, that you love them as a client, what will they respond to? And that goes back to some of the other things I said earlier. What's their personality like? You want to respond, it's not about you, it's about them. And whenever it comes to the communication, you want to keep that in mind. Now, some of these things you can see, wow, some of this stuff crosses over into my personal life. Yeah, no kidding. I can tell you that my fiance and I, we have a couples coach that we see about once a month. And it's amazing how many things we've learned in couples coaching has applied to real estate, because it's about relationships. You know, it's about that clear communication. It's about not making assumptions. It's about putting the other person first. It's about asking questions. So many of those things will cross over. The more you grow personally, the more it also affects your real estate. The more you grow in communication, the more you become an effective communicator in real estate. So any questions? Any thoughts? Great.
I think you hit it and covered it pretty well. Yeah, I mean, it's really trying to figure out what your client responds to.
Yeah. And communicating in that manner.
It's very important, all the things you said, Rob. I'm really glad I got in on this class, although I was late.
Well, we're glad you guys are here, and I'm communicating that with you. So thanks for being here, guys. I really do appreciate it. This is one of those topics that when we talked about what are the things to put together, I'm like, I want to do this. And this is something I want to do regularly because I think it's so critical in our culture and in our careers. Thanks for being here. Bye.
Thanks, Rob.